Good evening. Tonight we tread upon all, and where the chill cuts to the bone, silence no blankets the boundless plains, where only the groan of timber and the rustle of beasts disturb the stillness. This is the Wild West, not a film set, but the very edge of a harsh winter. Survival here is not about treasure, but merely enduring the long night. The cold is so deep that lashes freeze, and boots crunch upon the hard ground. Every sound shatters the frozen silence. If unprepared, you shall not survive this night. But let us begin at the start. Before relaxing, please like and subscribe. If you enjoy my work, tell me where you come from. What time is it where you are now? Extinguish the light. You are walking through the biting darkness. Snowflakes strike your cheeks. The cold wind pierces your scarf. Imagine slumbering here. No heating. No thick windows. No warm hem. Only you are, the wilderness, and whatever survival supplies you can find. The earliest westward pioneers carried grand visions, yet lay utterly defenseless in their wagons. They soon realized soft beds cannot withstand the Dakota, the biting wind piercing through wooden walls. You step into a crude log cabin, walls of green timber, sap still wet, cracks filled with moss or mud, splintering in the chill. Inside, family nods in greeting. They spread every buffalo hide. Layers of quilts, stitched from old clothes, cover the beds. Mid-minus 19th century, buffalo hides were the plains' chief trade goods, serving as bedding and door curtains. Without them, pioneers faced the harsh winter bare. You smell smoke, wet wool and a sharp scent. Animal fat used for boot miners, making the hearth fire crackles, as if conveying warmth. But step back, and frost climbs the inner wall. You touch the plank bed, rough and prickly. Straw mattress bulges beneath thin cloth. It pricks and ditches unbearably, yet it's warmer than the icy floor. Cold seeps in like a dark tide. Experts still debate, could one sleep soundly in such conditions, or toss and turn through the night. You lie down, drape the fur over yourself, listen to the walls creak beneath the weight of snow. Your breath crystallizes in the firelight. Strangely, your exhalations trace silver lace upon the ceiling. Then, a wolf's howl pierces the wind. You huddle deeper beneath the fur, yet some find solace in that cry, proof of life, flickering in the flames. Strangely enough, your breath adorns the roof like silver lace. Then comes the sound from outside, the howl of a lone wolf in the wind. You wrap yourself tightly in the fur, yet some settlers find the howl reassuring. It proves the beasts are far off, not lurking nearby. They whisper that true danger lies in silence, meaning the beast is already close at hand. You close your eyes, trying to sleep, yet your body remains stiffly curled, seeking warmth. The straw beneath you shifts, releasing the scent of dry hay. Cold air seeps through the cracks in the walls. You turn towards the fire. Every blanket carries the taste of smoke. Some nights, smoke fills the cabin, stinging your eyes, burning your throat, yet letting the fire die meant frostbite before dawn. When the hut fell silent, your thoughts drifted. You felt the anxieties of those who came before, men and women forced to rest while the alarm bells rang. The Wild West's winter was a harsh teacher, compelling you to adapt or die. In this first night, you understood sleep was not for comfort, but for survival, while enduring the bitter cold, stealing whatever rest you can, eyelids heavy as lead weights. Wood creaks, snowflakes whisper, neighbor's breath mingles into a lullaby, not for slumber, but for survival. As you slip into shallow sleep, the night grows colder and darker outside, yet you always make it through the first watch. Only when the icy air brushes your face do you realize how thin the walls truly are. The log cabin in photographs under coarse blankets, wind seeps through cracks. Every flaw becomes palpable. You wrap the buffalo hide tighter, yet chill creeps in like a thief when skin stings and nose tips numb. How hard it is to sleep. You cannot help but wonder, how did the early settlers survive here? The cabin was built in mere days. Rough hewn logs stacked, gaps wide enough to let in light and cold wind. The family stuffed the crevices with moss, dirt, straw, strips of cloth. Yet come January, the chill still seeps through. Imagine tossing and turning, counting the gusts, like counting sheep. Each gust a cold touch upon your cheek. You glance towards the corner, where a child sleeps curled beneath the quilt. An old skirt's leaf woven into the fabric. A thin quilt, yet a lifeline against the cold. Parents huddle by the stove, feigning indifference to the chill. By the wall, someone patches gaps with oiled paper. No glass, yet it lets in light and blocks the draft. Imagine the break of dawn. Morning light does not stream through the window, but rustles through the paper screen with the wind. Scholars still debate. Did the pioneers see the log cabin as home, or merely a stepping stone to a better life? Some say they were merely transitional dwellings, to be abandoned once new houses were built. Others say many spent their entire lives within these drafty walls, too busy striving to survive to dream. You shift to wrap the animal hide tighter, hearing the wind wail between rafters, that sound like a visitor creeping along the walls, faint and elusive, as if sleeping within an instrument. The entire structure sings in the cold. You wonder whether those raised here find this sound as soothing as some today sleep to the hum of a fan. The scent of pine resin wafts from freshly sawn timber. Months later, sap still crystallizes into bead, sticky to the touch. It glistens in the firelight, a reminder of the tree's journey into shelter. You touch the wall. In places, you feel the coarse bark, thinking this is no fine house, but a wall built of forest, holding back the winter. Your body shifts again, seeking comfort, but the uneven floor pushes you towards the fire. Many log cabins have earthen floors, softened weakly with fresh straw. Yet in the depths of winter, frost still rises from the ground. The earth breathes cold into the room. Imagine when the floor itself stings from beneath. How can one sleep so? The chill finds you again, and you lift the quilt. A sigh, half resignation, half weariness. Here, cold is an eternal companion. No complete barrier exists between inside and out. This is merely the ceaseless assault of winter's relentless advance against the need for rest. Between sleep and wakefulness, you begin to accept that sleep here never seeks absolute stillness, only to drift amidst the drafts, weaving the wind's murmur into dreams, trusting the thin walls will hold till dawn. As night deepens, you pull the quilt tight once more, knowing full well warmth here is never guaranteed, but earned by every animal hide, every scrap of cloth, every ounce of ingenuity. With minus 19th century, buffalo hide was not merely spoils of war, but daily necessity. By day, it lined carriage seats. By night, it became heavy quilting. Without them, the settlers endured far more bitter cold than their indigenous neighbors. You inhale the scent of tanned hides and wool, rustic and potent. Buffalo hides were not merely hunting trophies, but daily necessities. By day they cushioned wagon seats. By night they became heavy bedding. Without them, the settlers faced far less shelter than their indigenous neighbors. You inhale the scent of tanned leather and wool, unadorned yet potent, a testament to lives once vibrant. Above the hides lay patchwork quilts, muffled fragments of red, blue, and yellow, each bearing its tale. The edge of an old apron, a remnant of a wedding gown, a scrap from a worn shirt. These quilts are not merely coverings, but memories stitched into the fabric. Their warmth stems not only from the filling, but from the emotions woven within. The pioneers say, quilts worn through years carry a smoky scent, with a hint of sweetness if lavender was added. Their weight and fragrance offer equal solace. These quilts pass from generation to generation, each winter adding new patches and layers of history. You pull the quilt up to your chin, as if all the hands that stitched it still tuck you in. You still wonder if these quilts can truly withstand the steppes' bitter cold. Scholars debate whether layers of fabric alone can truly lock in body heat on the coldest nights, or a family embrace is the true key. Alone, one might shiver and shiver, but shared warmth builds a world of gentle heat. The wind moans in the corners of the wooden hut, yet beneath these layers of fur and quilt, you sense a fragile cocoon taking shape. The firelight casts a golden glow upon the bedding, the fur light, heavy with the scent of the steppe. The quilt enfolds you, like an unfinished tale, reminding you why each piece of fabric was treasured and preserved. Outside, snow piles tower high, shutting out the world's clamor within. Layers of warmth weave their own realm. You close your eyes, letting the heavy quilt sink you into the straw mattress. Rough yet passable, life here holds no splendor, only fur, cloth and hope, layered upon layered. With these, you drift into slumber. The quilts enfold you like stitched embraces. Beneath the bed comes a faint crackling, not firelight, but dry straw rubbing. You shift your body. Straw pierces the linen, tickling like fine needles. The diary records most families slept on straw sacks, cloth bags stuffed with straw or withered leaves, flattened, cheap and easily replaced. Yet comfort varies from person to person. Each turn of the body releases the summer scent of grass, in winter bearing a bittersweet fragrance. You sink into the mattress, beneath the creaking bester, knowing you lie upon last season's straw, made of dry grass or withered leaves, both cheap and easily replaced. Yet comfort remains relative. Each turn of the body releases the summer scent of grass. In the depths of winter, a bittersweet fragrance lingers. You curl within the mattress, amidst creaking, undrustling sounds, knowing you lie upon the previous season's uneven bedding, pressing against your ribs. You wriggle in search of softer patches. Pioneers once added corn husks, claiming greater durability and resilience than straw. Yet sharp husk edges often left scratches upon the arms, a peculiar solace. Solace nonetheless. Smoke and frost weigh heavy overhead, yet you catch the scent of hay, a ghost of warmer days. Some children are enamored with this smell, preferring to keep moldy straw mattresses, simply to preserve memories of autumn field. You smile, even as the itch drives you to shift once more. Does the straw bed offer true rest or merely postpone fatigue? Experts disagree. Some say the pioneer lies half-minus asleep upon the bed's cold, rigid surface. The body can never fully relax. Others insist that after a day's labor, anyone can sleep soundly in the straw. Whether it itches or not matters little. Your hand traces the bed's stitching, imagining the delicate palms that stitched it, reinforcing every corner, solely to bind the straw. When the mattresses and evenings became unbearable, the family would carry it outdoors, beat out the dust with wooden sticks. Then refill it with fresh straw, refiling with new straw. This process was a ritual within the rhythm of survival. In those moments, the mattress was not merely a tool for sleep, but a reminder of life's impermanence. Your breath rustles through the straw. The bed may prickle, cold may creep in, but if the mattress is thick enough and resolve steadfast enough, you will sink into its rustling warmth, clutching the fragile hope of rest. The fire in the cottage is both salvation and peril, a cunning companion, determining your night's repose. You gaze into the hearth. Flames, orange minus gold and blue, lick at the carefully stacked, heavy logs. Sparks leap and dance, twisting through smoke that curls around the rafters, finally vanishing through the rough chimney. The air thick with the scent of pine resin, the damp wooden faint, acrid scent, imprinted upon every quilt in the room, every inch of fur. It is said many families placed their bedding beside the hearth, sometimes even slept directly upon the hearthside, simply to draw a little warmth. You reach towards the firelight. A wave of heat saturates your fingertips, yet you sense the danger too. Here, the flames are never safe. A sudden crack of wood sends sparks flying onto the bedding, your chest tightening abruptly. Many historical records tell of log cabins consumed in an instant, Fierce flames devour the parched wooden walls. Families flee into the wind and snow clad only in their clothes. Sleeping by the hearth may be warm, but it also means teetering on the brink of disaster. You gaze at the small iron pots suspended over the flames. Steam crackled. The lid trembled in response. To keep the air moist, the family always simmered water slowly on the hearth, an ancient custom, leaving soup by the fire overnight, both frost-proof and readily available. Imagine waking in the cold night, scooping up steaming broth, its warmth spreading, before burrowing back into the icy bedding. The hearth crackles once more, reminding you of its constant presence, like a sleepless guest tossing in the room. Some pioneers trusted it too much, letting the flames rage while they slept. Upon waking, the cabin was filled with smoke. Others cautiously maintain a faint, steady flame, nursing it like a devoted caretaker. Is it the comfort of sleeping by the hearth that lulls the family to rest, or the vigilance of rising to stoke the fire that shatters sleep entirely? The hearth fire is both solace and sovereign, exchanging vigilance for tranquility. Vigilance, a child cooled by the fire, little hands reaching for warmth, their cheeks flushed with the embers' glow. Their dreams seem lighter than yours. Faint breaths pierce the crackling light. Small bodies curled like kittens in warmth. Parents hover between them under flames, becoming shields of flesh and blood. Should sparks leap too near, the adult's sleep is no longer pure. Thoughts stick away with the flame. How many logs remain? Might the wind draw smoke back down the chimney? If the fire dies before dawn, you close your eyes, trying to imagine the silence without fire. Would you dare? In some log cabins, the hearth is the bed. After cooking, people pile furs upon the hearth's almost lying within the embers' faint glow. Spark-scorching blankets or singeing hair were commonplace, yet the warmth skull outweighed the risk. Frontier wits joke. Scorch marks on bedding prove you wintered correctly. Drawn era. Let the heat wave kiss your cheek, still skin tingles. The smoky scent grows thicker. Though singed here and coldest are far from pleasant, they bring a strange, comforting reassurance. They silence I catches your ear, the fire's low murmur. The rhythm of wood turning to embers becomes a lullaby, an eternal soothing. Yet you know sleep by the hearth is rarely deep. The flames need tending. Each crackle, each swirl of smoke will rouse you. Family members take turns keeping watch. Every few hours, someone rises to stoke the fire. Fatigue clings like a shadow. But this ritual is a matter of survival. Without the hearth's warmth, the log cabin would become a freezer. Frost would bloom upon the walls, and the straw mattress would freeze rock-minus hard through the long night. You lie on your side, watching the flames. Shadows lengthen on the roughed ember like skeletal frames, dancing and undulating with the flames, as if spectres summoned by the hearth's call. To some, these shadows bring unease. To others, they are familiar companions. On this land without theatres, the night's entertainment, children whisper that shadows are guardian spirits, watching over the cold night, whether bringing comfort or dread. The hearth fire shapes not just bodily rest, but the wandering of the soul. Smoke minus stained air clings to hair. Each turn of the head tickles the nose. Many settlers awoke at dawn, faces blackened, coughing incessantly, eyes reddened by the smoke. Yet still they cherish this warmth. You cough softly, imagining the coal dust in your lungs, quietly wondering how many lives in the long, cold winter have silently grown shorter. At midnight, the flames fade to glowing embers, gentle as a heart beating in the dark. You reach out to touch, feeling the warmth slowly fade. Family stir. Someone rises to stoke the fire. Sparks sleep once more. The rhythm continues. You drift between sleep and wakefulness. The flame never begrudges its demands, never slackens its vigil. It is not gentle, at least not wholly gentle. Yet in this bitter winter, it remains your closest companion. You confide in this steadfast friend, drawing deep breaths to let warmth seep into your bones. Admitted every border sleeper shares a silent pact with the fire, trusting it enough to sleep soundly, yet fearing it enough to wake with a start, hoping before dawn breaks, the last embers still glow. You stir slightly on the straw mattress. Water buffalo, the buffalo hide blanket slips from your shoulder. The chill pierces like a blade. Swiftly you wrap yourself back in the blanket. Glancing around the wooden hut, every corner is crammed with huddled bodies, layered upon layered, curled into tight clusters. For here, warmth is a collective endeavor. Observers say, unless forced, no one sleeps alone on the frontier. The reason is simple: sharing body heat beneath furs and quilts means survival. When the outside temperature plunges below freezing, you can vividly imagine children angled like puppies, parents pressed close, perhaps a laborer or traveler squeezed into any gap. Boundaries hold no strict privacy. Beds joined wall to wall, or mats spread across the floor, all to trap the warmth. In such arrangement, you breathe not only your own air, but that of everyone present. When dampness pervades the log cabin, collective exhalations frost the tip of your nose. One female pioneer recorded guests were often shoved straight into the bedding, sometimes sharing a single quilt with 6 others. To modern ears this sounds bizarre, but for them, true strangeness lay in non-sharing. Even in stegacuos or inns, strangers would squeeze into narrow berths, ignoring awkwardness, for frostbite was more dreaded than shame. Experts still debate, did such intimacy foster greater harmony or friction within frontier families? Some argue that enforced, strengthened bonds, making households resilient units. Others contend it bred resentment, irritability and exhaustion. Too many limbs tangled, too many coughs piercing the night. Perhaps both are true, depending on the shifting tides of family and night. When you stretch out an arm and touch the warmth of another sleeper, the initial sensation startles. The heat of another body, the faint rhythm of breath, yet soon it becomes strangely soothing. The weight beside you banishes the chill from your side. As if together you build a defense against the winter. These nights shared in sleep have their own rhythm. Children wriggle and kick off their covers. Parents duck them back, and someone snores like thunder, shaking the stillness, until a gentle nudge of the elbow restores quiet. A baby's cry is soothed by a lullaby, sinking once more into fragile tranquility. All this unfolds beneath a patchwork of furs and quilts, amidst the crackling symphony of the hearth fire. Some families arrange themselves like spokes of a wheel, heads clustered towards the light, feet stretched outwards, warmth converging towards the center. Others prefer a longitudinal lie. Strong bodies guard the edges, protecting the more fragile in the center. Children are almost always placed at the edge of the firelight, feet pointing outwards. Some families arrange themselves like spokes in a wheel, heads by the fire, feet facing out, warmth converging towards the center, all sharing the residual warmth. Others lie in rows. The robust guard the edges, protecting the more fragile in the center. Children are always placed in the warmest spot, sandwiched between parents or swathed in extra quilts. The room's scent was equally intimate. Sweat mingled with smoke, wool damp with thawing frost, unwashed laundry carrying summer's faint soreness. Such closeness might feel suffocating in summer, but in winter's grip, the mingled odors receded behind survival. You breathed without judgment, each breath reminding you in this frozen wilderness, you are not alone. Historians long debated, how did the culture of commonest sleeping alter Western social norm? Was it merely a practical response to harsh winters, or did it reshape notions of community and trust? To share a bed was to entrust one's safety and vulnerability to another. Though with improved housing and heating, this custom has gradually faded. Its echoes linger in tales, where winters are no longer depicted as solitary ordeals, but as seasons where intimacy itself became the sole barrier. Imagine drifting into slumber amidst such companionship, back against a body, knee touching another. You lose all sense of boundary between self and other. Body heat flows freely. Bedding grows heavier. Thoughts finally shed winter's imposed vigilance. Within this web of intertwined bodies, what you find is not luxury, but a collective surrender to sleep's ritual. Yet not all shared minus-bed memories are war. Certain diarists have confessed to irritation, the itch of straw pillows, elbows between ribs, whispered words, and coughs disturbing deep slumber. Disputes even erupt over blankets and space. Some even. Yet, as one pioneer dryly noted, better restless wolf than frozen silence. As the night lengthens, you realize that initial crowding becomes a strange solace, hearing others' steady breaths, knowing you face winter's cruelty not alone. This too becomes part of the frontier's lullaby. Sleep ceases to be a solitary act, but a meticulously stitched collective endeavor, like a patchwork quilt draped over all. So you let your body melt into warmth, ignoring the occasional kick or elbow, regarding intimacy as essential to survival. Outside, the storm tears at the cabin walls, yet the bodies beneath the shared quilt themselves become a hearth against the night, dragging the cold dawn back. You jolt awake. A faint glow above startles you, at first mistaking dust for firelight. Yet, in the next instant, frost blooms like lace upon the rafters. Each breath you and your companions exhale drift into the crystal lysing air, transforming into shimmering patterns of ice. The diary often records waking to find the roof seemingly painted with ice, as if the log cabined on winter's attire overnight, seemingly magical, yet truly revealing the night's biting chill. You deliberately exhale, watching your breath curl in the dim space. The strange, shimmering spectacle as it freezes is mesmerizing. Imagine knowing that even your body's warmest signals cannot resist winter's cold. The air itself reminds you, the cabin is no fortress, merely a fleeting pause between the wild outside and the chill within. Frost inside always carried an unease. One hunter recorded waking to find his blanket frozen to the wall, the condensed moisture binding them fast. Some joked that if people huddled in a cabin on a bitter night, it might even snow indoors. In the coldest season, moisture would occasionally fall as fine rain, as if the room held its own private storm. Experts still debate, are frozen rafters truly real? Health risks, some say persistent damp breeds disease. Pneumonia and rheumatism not weary pioneers, others claim the air is generally too dry. Frost is merely a visual nuisance, melting when the hearth fire reignites. Perhaps both are true. The chill overhead sparkles like stars, yet it conceals a peril that corrodes lungs and joints. Wrap yourself tighter in your bedding. Hear the faint creak of wooden beams as the chill deepens. Frost flowers shimmer in the firelight, a strange replica of the stars. This sight is beautiful, almost serene, but you know full well the room is bitterly cold. Your breath transforms into soft plumes of vapor, drifting towards the ever-minus growing cluster of frost stars upon the beams. Some households employed a trick, hanging spare sheets or canvas beneath the rafters to form a false ceiling, catching the frost before it fell upon the sleeper. Imagine waking with no ice crystals in your hair, thanks to the makeshift canopies suspended by nails and rope. It was unsightly, but on the frontier, there was no room for elegance, only practicality. Your ears catch the faint dripping of melting frost. The furnace's warmth touches the frost layer, loosening it. Tiny droplets fall onto the mattress. The sting of icy water on your cheek makes you flinch. Then you chuckle softly. The absurdity of being roused by icicles within is a memory seldom shared beyond these walls. The rafters creak once more. Heavy snow weighs upon the roof. Each groan makes you wonder if the entire structure might collapse. Pioneers often rise at dawn to shovel snow, knowing full well that too much accumulation could crush the log cabin. The lace of ice crystals overhead is but the slender veneer of a heavy burden, yet in the frost illuminated by this dim firelight, it glitters with a silver radiance, transforming the rugged cabin into some sort of sanctuary. Perhaps the children once traced those patterns with sleepy eyes, mistaking them for angels before drifting off to sleep. Perhaps it is precisely this mindset that allows the spirit to endure in harsh conditions. In the dim light of the fire, the frost patterns shimmered with silver light, transforming the rough log cabin into some sort of sanctuary. The children might have traced those patterns with sleepy eyes before drifting off to sleep, mistaking them for angels. Perhaps it is precisely this mindset that allows the spirit to endure in harsh conditions. Amidst frost and snow, in the dim light of the fire, it glitters like silver, transforming the crude hut into a sanctuary. Children may have once seen angels in the crystalline patterns, tracing them with sleepy eyes, until they drifted off to sleep. Perhaps it is precisely thus that the spirit survives the bitter cold, finding beauty in breaths frozen to brittle ice. You curl beneath the fur, knowing each inhale and exhale builds the icy dough. You realize, here, even your breath leaves its mark, proof of survival against the chill. Frost flowers are fragile and fleeting, yet they are the night's glittering diary, written by the heart, in flame and darkness. So you close your eyes once more, listening to the groaning rafters, gazing at the silver lace's fleeting presence, letting thoughts drift. Even in the deepest cold, life still leaves beauty behind. When morning light arrives, frost blossoms melt into dewdrops gently tapping the bedding, and you know the cottage has weathered another night. Thin walls, frozen rafters, a restless sleep, and when you turn over, the hearth fire flickers faintly, yet the chill has seeped into your bones. You shiver and pull the quilt tighter, wondering what other tricks people use to deceive their bodies into thinking they're warm enough to sleep. The answer is often drink. As is well known, whiskey, brandy, any strong spirit is a common eintike among frontier settlers. They believe a eintike warms the blood, dispels the night's chill. You imagine raising a tin cup, the liquid burning your throat, the wave of heat lasting but a moment. That comfort is as fleeting and delusory as a hearth spark. Now you understand the truth. They never knew alcohol dilates blood vessels, bringing warmth. Yet the body loses heat faster. It's no wonder this became a ritual. After a day of chopping wood, tending livestock, battling wind and snow, that burning sensation was no longer a remedy, but solace. The bottle passed between hands, not merely physical comfort, was a mark of human connection, a small rebellion against the cold. Strangely enough, some settlers would give children small sips. One mother wrote in her diary, "Whiskey lulls a child to sleep faster than a cradle." Today this practice might shock, but in those days, when frost frosted the window panes, and firewood was scarce to spare, blurred the line between remedy and risk. Not all endorsed spirits. Certain church leaders denounced dependence on alcohol, urging families to seek warmth in prayer rather than the bottle. Others advocated moderation, believing hot cider or mulled wine offered solace, while avoiding whiskey and lodgings. Coffee sometimes substituted for spirits. This better brew, though less conducive to sleep, was thought to ward off the chill. Historians remain undecided on the prevalence of nocturnal drinking, yet it undoubtedly shaped the sleep rhythms of many mountain cabins and frontier outposts. Imagine clasping a steaming cup, holding warm liquid, perhaps not whiskey, but milk or broth warmed over embers, steam rising in wisps, mellowing the biting air within the log cabin, moistening throats spiced by smoke, even sipped in small, deliberate mouthfuls. To savor the warmth upon the lips helps thoughts sink into tranquility. This small ritual of the eintike, whatever the liquid may be, is as essential as the quilt or cowhide blanket, part of the nightly preparations for enduring the darkness. Certain records bear curious annotations. Frontier dwellers often added peculiar ingredients to their bedtime brews. Mint gathered in summer, sage, even spruce needles, steeped in hot water to brew a soothing digestive tea. One pioneer swore adding bear fat to hot milk coated the stomach lining, whether effective or not. These concoctions reveal endless attempts to outwit the cold. The hearth crackled. You picture bottles or kettles passed round the room. Each sip paused for a moment, accompanied by a sigh of relief. In those fleeting moments when the chill receded, perhaps a low chuckle would break out, weary laughter echoing off wooden walls, or perhaps a quarrel would flare. As drunkenness and weariness sharpen tempers, alcohol's nature is to minus faced, offering swift solace, yet often stirring trouble. Every household knows its dual power. You close your eyes, pretending to taste the sting on your tongue, as fleeting warmth spreads, dizziness pushing you into dream. At last you understand why so many cling to their own type, not from ignorance, but out of sheer survival, when each breath freezes to frost. When the bed is straw in an ice house, the burning liquid in your throat is no mere indulgence, but a ritual for survival, urging the body to surrender, to slender, to slumber. You burrow deep into the blankets, half minus asleep. You glimpse the shared flask and whiskey glass. See people gathered round the campfire, laughter piercing the howling cold. Sleep creeps upon you, not because warmth suffices, but because you've convinced yourself it does. On this land ravaged by winter's fury, sometimes belief itself is the strongest medicine. The glass is empty. The lingering warmth of the last sip dissipates. Only then do you recall that not every night brings restful slumber. Sometimes duty rouses you from sleep. In this wilderness, life does not pause for drifting snow or deepening night. Livestock in the barn still demand tending. The hearth requires stoking. Water must be drawn from the well. The diary fills with weary scribbles, records of rising in darkness to fetch firewood or tend the animals. Sleep on the frontier is more like pieced minus together fragments of time than unbroken slumber. Imagine slipping into stiff leather boots, the frozen leather clumsy and unyielding. Even indoors, you can see the white mist of your breath. The oil lamp hisses. Smoke fills the room. You pull your cloak tighter, grit your teeth and step into the snow. The biting cold strikes instantly. Air, like needles piercing cheeks. Silence, so profound the low of blood in ears becomes audible. The sky like dark velvet, pierced by sparks, fiery embers frozen in flight. It is well known. Livestock often mark the divide between survival and famine. Thus family dare not leave them unattended. Even at midnight, horses and cattle must be fed and watered. Young children might be sent to fetch buckets of water, their frail forms bundled in layers of wool, staggering behind their parents. If the troughs freeze over, someone must break the ice barehanded. In the biting wind, their fingers sting unbearably. The very thought makes one's knuckles ache. Some pioneers had a custom. On bitterly cold nights, they would bring small livestock indoors. In the dead of winter, hens would cluck in the corner of the room. Piglets would squeal by the hearth, and goats would softly bleat in the shadows. Such a scene might seem chaotic, yet their warmth truly warmed the entire household. On the coldest nights, small animals were brought indoors. Chickens clucked in the corner. Piglets squealed by the hearth. Goats bleated softly in the shadows. This might sound chaotic, yet their warmth aided the household's survival. Children often treated these nights as play, sleeping beside strong mattresses pillowed on hens. To this day, historians still debate how much genuine rest could be gained when nightly labors constantly interrupted sleep. Some believe these midnight interruptions split sleep into two phases. Later scholars termed primum somen, and secundum somen. Others question whether frontier households could maintain any regular routine. Weariness alone dictated when and how they rested. Whatever the theory, it remains certain one could scarcely lie still for long. Always someone would rise to tend to something. You imagine trudging through knee-minus deeps, know the flickering lantern's shadow lengthening across the drift. Each crunch of crushed snow beneath your feet reminding you that in this frozen realm you were utterly alone. The barn stood like a colossal beast, their doors frosted over. Warm air inside, permeated with hay, Minoran's steaming breath. The animals roused, grumbling or snorting in recognition. You scatter fodder, break the ice from the water trough, stroke the horse's muzzle. As it exhales warmth towards you, the mist condensing on your palm makes you forget your own chill. The journey home is long, body heavy. Exhaustion weighs like a second blanket. Mists from my breath gather in my palm. For a moment, I forget my own chill, in the rhythm of tending. Yet the journey home feels unnaturally long. My body heavy, as if bearing a second blanket. The lamp crackles. Boots slip on the ice. Only the longing to burrow back into bed sustains the steps forward, pushing open the cottage door. A wave of smoky heat washes over me, both the release and an assault. Skin stings, the sensation returns, stripping off frozen garments, joining the slumbering throng once more. Strangely enough, some households regard the midnight toil as almost a solemn meditation. One father once wrote that his quiet stride to the barn in the dead of night was the only peaceful moment in the entire day when he could touch the stars. Silence made space for thought, while more practical records merely noted the weariness. 3 times rising in the night to fetch firewood and feed the animals. By dawn, half mine is dead. Both perspectives reveal the same truth. Sleep here is never simple. Curling back into the bed, the body still carries the stinging chill. You sink into the hay, crackling like brittle bones. In the warmth of the bed already made, you gratefully burrow under the covers, listening to the hearth fire reignite its rhythmic crackling. Your eyelids flutter shut. You understand that in this wilderness, sleep is never whole. It is a fragmented bargain between labor, hunger, fast and worry. Yet it is within these fragments that you survive. So let your thoughts drift once more, knowing the livestock is safe. The hearth fire burns. Outside, snowflakes still drift silently down. Even this fragmented sleep is enough. You turn closer to the warmth, yet still feel something missing. The furs and quilts are heavy. The hearth crackles, but the chill always finds its way through the cracks. You reach for the bundle at your feet. Moccasins, lined with fur as thick as gloves. Coarse cotton night clothes. In this wilderness, one never changes for bed, merely layering garments. Travel notes worn sleeping naked in winter nights is tantamount to courting death. Western wilderness nights demand meticulous preparation. Like a soldier, your fingers trace the moccasin's fur, soft yet lingering with the hearth's embers. Evidently, many pioneers drew heavily on indigenous wisdom from nightwear choices. Plains and Rocky Mountain natives had perfected the art of winter survival, layering furs to wrap the feet, even sewing nightwear from rabbit pelts. European settlers accustomed to linen robes soon discovered thin fabrics were utterly useless here. Historical records clearly document how pioneers emulated indigenous winter attire: deer-hide leggings, deer-hide mittens, multi-layered moccasins. To adapt, one trapper's memoir recounts stuffing straw into moccasins before sleep, claiming its warmth far surpassed soot. Children often slept in their shoes, tucking feet into straw pads without complaint. To modern ears, such sleeping arrangements seem uncomfortable. Yet for them, warmth and comfort outweighed the prickle of straw and the stiffness of leather. Scholars still debate to what extent did settlers adopt indigenous sleeping customs. Some argue these survival minus essential practices became widespread. Others note pride and prejudice led many to reject full adoption, even when it promised common nights. Yet one certainty remains: those who adapted suffered fewer frostbite tests. Toes and fingers no longer prickle with icy pain. You wrap extra garments around your chest, perhaps a shawl or an unbuttoned old coat. The scent of sweat mingled with wood smoke wafts up. The coarse fabric chafes the skin, yet traps warmth. The bedding weighs heavily, curled within. It feels like being swathed in patchwork cloth and furs. Yet this very armor wards off the night's chill. Curiously, some households even sleep with scarves wrapped around their heads or woolly hats on. After all, The scalp radiates heat most rapidly. Pioneers quipped that sleep requires not just a pillow, but a head. Children were often with like bundles of cloth, layers upon layers concealing their faces. Immobile in their swaddling, yet they slept soundly. That was the whole point. Ruined sounds were swallowed by layers of fabric. The crackling fire sounded like distant applause. The cold wind whispered among the logs. Breaths intertwined within the folds. Yours and theirs. The entire room cocooned. You shift slightly. Deerskin boot lightly touches another foot, smiling in the dim warmth. Here, elegance is not sought, only the clever use of available materials. Historians still puzzle over this. Did the pioneers regard these cold nights as hardship or routine? Did they curse each added garment, each prickly hide, each stiff piece of leather? You smile in the shadows. Warmth is not elegance. It is improvisation, making clever use of what is at hand. Historians still speculate. Did the pioneers regard these nights as hardship or routine? Did they curse each layer of superfluous fur, each prickle of leather, each creak of hide? Or did they see it as ordinary life, like fetching water or chopping wood? Perhaps with the passing years, the layers of wrapping grew familiar, as natural as the chill itself. You close your eyes, arranging the furs at your feet, imagining the state of mind when clad in such garments. After days of drifting snow, that warmth, though imperfect, was like slipping into a safe embrace. The Wild West demanded resilience, but also softness, the gentle embrace of fur, the cocoon of wool, the shelter of hides, allowing weary bodies to sink utterly into rest. You lie wrapped in deerskin shoes and a shawl, letting thoughts drift. The cold night presses against the log cabin, but now your body is a fortress, layers upon layers bearing the wisdom of ancestors. Amidst coarse straw, smoke miner stained bedding and soft furs, you find comfort enough. Sinking once more into slumber, you awaken once more, this time not from the chill, but from a sound, at first faint like the crackle of a campfire or the murmur of a stream, then growing louder. A long, mournful howl drifts through the night. Your chest instinctively tightens. Beyond the thin, wooden walls, the wild remains. A pack of wolves roams the grasslands and foothills. Their howls pierce the frozen earth. Travelers often write that the wolf's howl is the voice of the plains beneath the night sky, reminding mankind that even within a solitary wooden hut, one is never truly alone. That sound, sharp and eerie, yet strangely beautiful, rises and falls, occasionally echoed by distant packs, until the entire horizon reverberates with howls. You imagine the wolves trading through snowdrifts, their paws silent, breaths steaming, eyes glinting faintly in moonlight. Hearing the howls from within the cabin, one realizes how fragile the shelter is. Between you and them lies only a plank, a barrier of moss and prayer. A pioneer boy recalled. He slept soundly when wolves howled, for it meant the pack was far away. He explained, when wolves draw near, they do not sing. A strange logic, yet one with its own truth. Silence as heavy as lead, gaze as sharp as a scythe, more chilling than distant howls. Scholars still debate how often wolves threaten frontier homesteads. Records describe livestock torn apart. Some guard barns all night with guns, others believe the danger is exaggerated. Wolves favor deer and bison. Unless ravenous, they seldom challenge humans. Yet all acknowledge the psychological weight of their presence. Even when the pack never nears, their howls still haunt the edge of dreams. You curl involuntarily beneath the covers, ears straining. Another howl draws nearer, this time accompanied by scattered dog barks. Inside, someone stirs and murmurs, pulling the quilt tighter. Fear spreads like the chill. They shared silence, unspoken. You picture children clinging to their parents, whispering prayers, begging for stories to drown out the howling. Strangely, not all encounters are terrifying. Some hunters and scouts say the howling becomes a kind of companion. Others describe it as solace in the wilderness. The howl made him feel less adrift across this vast, frozen expanse. For a lonely soul, the wolf's song was proof that other lives were enduring the winter. As night deepened, the howling ebbed and flowed like the tide. You closed your eyes, trying to blend the sound into your drifting thoughts. Yet it echoed relentlessly, each note a reminder that wildness was battering the fragile wooden walls. You inhale the scent of smoke minus cured, sweat minus dampened wool. A faint fear permeates the air. Outside the window, eyes flicker, unseen, yet sensed. You ponder, what is it like to face such a balance each night? The craving for sleep battles with awareness. The predator prowls just beyond the door. Do people truly sleep soundly, or hang suspended between slumber and wakefulness? One ear forever pressed against the wilderness. Scholars still debate in such circumstances. How deep can frontier sleep truly be, or how much healing power it holds? Perhaps it was never a complete surrender, always a compromise between exhaustion and vigilance. The wolves' howls fade, drifting into the distance, until only the creaking beams and the wind's sigh remain. Tranquility floods the room. Silence itself becomes perceptible. Shoulders slacken. Breath deepens. Tonight the pack has passed. Let the body sink into straw. Feel the prickling sensation, the weight of leather pressing overhead. Fear lingers like shadows in corners. Yet weariness prevails. The wilderness stretches vast. The wolves are many, but you are here, alive. On this line between peril and peace, between howl and silence, lies the edge of your drowsiness. So you drift once more, half minus awake, half minus asleep. You see silver rise in the snow. You recall in the night, feel the warmth pressed close between the cottage walls. Sleep, fragile though it may be, finally descends. Like a quilt, it wraps you tight, cradling you securely until the first light of dawn. The wolves disperse from your dream, leaving behind another sound, the hiss of something heating by the hearth, faint yet resolute, like a secret ember beneath the quilt. Pioneers' letters often mentioned using glowing stones or bricks to ward off winter's chill. The method was simple: place stones in the embers until they glowed faintly. Carefully lift them with tongs or cloth. Slip them beneath the bedding or into the foot warmer. Warmth brought instant solace. Stiff, numb toes slowly revived beside the makeshift stove, though the warmth proved fleeting. Those first precious minutes felt like heaven. Some households rotated several stones throughout the night, exchanging cooled stones for ones freshly taken from the fire. This became a bedtime ritual, as deeply ingrained as prayer, or as indispensable as the hearth fire. A variation involved wrapping baked potatoes or turnips in cloth, warming the bed, and serving as breakfast upon rising, slightly smoky yet edible. Children often rejoiced at the dual delight of sleeping dinner. Diary entries brim with playful banter. Others employed irons. Those heavy garment minus pressing tools were stuffed into a wooden foot stove, then slid beneath the bedding. Naturally, burns remained a constant risk. Overheated stones or poorly wrapped bricks could scorch the bedding, or even leave permanent damage. To this day, scholars debate whether these customs originated in Europe or were Native American innovations. Some trace them to medieval hearths. Metal containers filled with embers were laced between sheets. Others suggest frontier scarcity of luxuries compelled settlers to independently revive the practice. Regardless of origin, the principle remains constant: erecting a fortress of warmth against the biting cold. Through the fabric, one could feel the stone's texture. Rough and heavy, it braced against the ankles. Warmth pulsed like a fading heartbeat. You instinctively curled your feet to embrace it, hoarding this small measure of energy in the cabin's silence. Such a minute comfort became profoundly precious. Family could sleep soundly, knowing at least the bed's corner remained unfrozen. Remarkably, some pioneers extended this practice to their journeys. Carters heated stones by roadside bonfires, wrapped in blankets beneath the carriage bedding travelers, even concealed stones beneath their coats whilst sleds ploughed through snow, pressing this primitive hut minus water, minus bottle warmth to their chests. Clumsy yet effective. A stubborn refusal to surrender to the cold. You gaze at the flickering embers in the hearth, knowing another stone soon would be ready. Someone stirred softly, silently retrieved the cooling stone with tongs, replaced it at the foot. The stone's replacement at the foot flowed seamlessly. A midnight ritual dance performed in half-minus sleep. The cycle allowed the bed to shelter. The chill pushed back just enough, allowing restful slumber. The scent of hot cloth mingles with smoke, slightly charred yet reassuring. You inhale deeply, eyelids heavy. Marvel that survival relies not on grand inventions, but on these simple, ingenious tricks. The stones in the hearth become the watershed between shivering nights and sinking into true sleep. Historians still ponder how much these nocturnal customs shaped frontier rhythms. The tended hearth, the stones and blankets. Did they shatter sleep into fragments, or forge a steady cadence? Perhaps both, depending on each household. But this much is certain. Without these measures, how many nights would prove unbearable? Your toes relax, legs and wind. Your weight sinks, sleek or onto shreds, or forged into steady rhythm. People grew accustomed, as naturally as the cocks grow at dawn. The hats both were true, depending on each household. But it is certain, without these measures, how many nights would have been unbearable? Toes stretched, legs relaxed. The weary weight finally overcame the lingering chill. You curled tighter, pressing toward warmth. A sigh as if the stone itself answered the body's plea. A small gift bestowed by the flame. You float again, surrendering to the long winter night, knowing survival lies in these fragile heats stolen from the fire. Stone, the pebble by your feet has cooled to a dull mess. You sense the chill seeping back in. Yet, as your palm slides along the log cabin wall, it no longer feels as icy as before. You realize something unusual is happening outside. Snow piles high between the rafters. Far from making the interior colder, it acts like a natural blanket blocking the cold. Historians often record how pioneers learned to regard snow as an ally when it tightly wraps the log cabin, sealing the cracks, softening the howling wind, silencing the groaning beams. The entire structure seemed cocooned in stillness. Your palm pressed against the roughed ember. You pondered the mystery of this insulation. Within the snow, heat was trapped more effectively than in bare wood or open air. Historical records note that odd-minus roofed dwellings dug into the earth, covered with thick layers of turf, proved warmer in winter than the drafty timber cabins. Many pioneer families reported snow accumulating upon sod roofs, forming a second layer of insulation, transforming their homes into warm subterranean nests. From the outside, they appeared as frost-minus covered mounds of earth, yet within they pulsed with warmth from hearth fires and bodily heat. One tale recounts a family waking after a blizzard to find their entire cabin buried, with the door sealed shut by snow. Initially feeling trapped, they soon realized the snow created an eerie stillness, where wind was utterly blocked. The interior grew warmer than any winter day. They dug passages for light and air, yet acknowledged it was this snow wall that saved them from frostbite. The children would oft uncheer, calling their home a snow fortress, as if the wilderness had transformed into a giant playground. Experts still debate whether thatched or timber houses offer better insulation. Some argue that while thatched houses are warm, they foster dampened insect infestations, while others insist that timber houses, if properly caulked and sealed, are more cold-minus resistant and less prone to collapse. This debate highlights how pioneers constantly weighed flaws under existing constraints, tolerating what flaws they could bear. The ultimate insulation solution was merely piling up nature's bountiful gifts. Earth, turf with the snow itself, sitting against the wall. The howl of wind through cracks had already diminished, a stillness carrying a certain engulfed quality. as if the snow outside had swallowed the entire world. This is not absolute silence, but a softer soundscape, like curling up beneath thick quilts. Snow clings to the cottage, transforming it into a nest against endless winter. Curiously, some households deliberately pile snow against their walls, building high snow walls to block the biting wind. This practice may seem primitive, yet anyone stepping into an igloo understands. Snow locks in warmth. Farmers even employ the same method for livestock barns, erecting protective walls with frozen air. The wisdom of survival lies in recognizing not all cold is the enemy. When the wind no longer whips smoke back into the chimney, the air grows crisp and gentle, and with each breath, one knows those who enter the snow house know snow can trap warmth. Farmers even do the same for livestock sheds, building walls with frozen air. The way of survival lies in understanding not all cold is the enemy. The air within also shifts quietly. No wind drags smoke back up the chimney. The air grows clearer and softer. Breathing becomes easier. The chest finally expands for the first time after a long night. The logs still crackle, yet with less urgency, as if relieved by the added support overhead. A thin frost glistens on the rafters, shimmering like a hidden constellation. Historians often ponder those buried log cabins in turf huts. Did they blur the boundary between human shelter and the natural world? Has the household truly severed ties with the wilderness, or merely borrowed nature's structure? Earth, snowdrifts, turf to erect fragile refuges. When you close your eyes, imagine the cottage vanishing beneath deep snow, where neither wolves nor icy winds can peer. This hidden corner of warmth flickers across the vast ice field. The body gradually relaxes. The crackle of wood still lingers, yet with less anxiety, as if relieved by the added support overhead. A thin frost glistens on the rafters, like a hidden constellation. Has the family truly severed ties with the wilderness, or merely borrowed from the earth? Snow and grass to construct fragile shelters. When you close your eyes and imagine the hut buried deep in snow, neither wolves nor icy winds can peer into this hidden, warm corner amidst the vast ice fields. Your body sinks deeper into the bed of straw and fur skins. The air grows ever gentler. The sense of repose within the snow walls is like dwelling within a shell. This tranquil refuge was not born of choice, but of necessity. Though the western winter is cruel, even here, nature bestows its strange kindness. As you sink into slumber, you grasp anew the way of survival, not always to battle nature, sometimes to let it enfold you. Awaking, a dull ache like needles in your joints. Each movement feels heavy. This is not weariness, but the slow gnawing of cold upon the body. Pioneers oft unchronicled winter ailments, not merely anecdotes of frostbite or blackened nose tips, but detailed accounts of rheumatism, frostbite, chest infections. These constant companions gnawing at life. Night brought no guarantee of warmth in the cabin. Sleeping in such conditions was not merely agony, but often left one weaker upon waking than when lying down. When the storm atmosphere shifted, a sharp sting shot through the toes. Frostbite readily assailed the extremities, especially when bedding slipped or the hearth fire dimmed. One recalled waking to find hair frozen to the wall, moisture crystallized into ice. Another described a child's frostbite, spreading like needles across the tips of their toes. Frostbite readily assails the extremities, especially when bedding slips or the hearth fire falters. One woman recalled waking to find her hair frozen to the wall, as night's dampness crystallized into ice. Another described a child whose soles blistered from sleeping near a draughty door. These were not accidents, but the routine hazards of winter. Frontier remedies reveal peculiar details. Some settlers smeared goose fat or bear tallow on skin before sleep, believing thick layers of grease could block the cold and ward off frostbite. Children drifted off with the scent of smoke. Animal fats clung sticky beneath bedding. Parents prayed it would suffice, though the method seemed odd. Many swore by its effectiveness. To this day, anthropologists still observe Arctic peoples employing similar techniques, demonstrating how desperation often spurs cross-cultural inventions. Scholars continue debating whether sleep deprivation causes deteriorating health, or if illness precedes disrupted sleep. Does cold induce insomnia, weakening the body? Or does fatigue from interrupted sleep open the door to pneumonia? Though causality remains elusive, the pattern is stark. Even the most resilient pioneers succumb to the harsh winter. Many never fully recover from what seems a simple cold. Imagine huddled beneath thick, frost-encrusted blankets, each cough accompanied by gasps and shivers, a faint warmth barely sustained in the darkness, violent coughing echoing through the night. Children, the elderly, even burly men, gasping for breath in the smoky air. Diaries chronicle entire households sleepless through the night, tending the sick. The hearth crackles. The long night drags on endlessly. Remarkably, the boundaries of remedy blur. Medicine and superstition intertwine. Pioneers often stuffed onions into socks to reduce fever, placed garlic under pillows to ward off the cold. Warm stones were not only placed on feet, pressed to the chest, they eased bronchitis. Held against the abdomen, they soothed cramps, regardless of efficacy. The solace these actions brought was perhaps the crux. Turning once more, stiff arms stretched beneath the furs. Pain remained, yet the cabin was still. Observing how the body adapts, fitful sleep is rest after all. A deeper stillness descends. The heart learns to ignore discomfort, or at least carries it into dreams. A frontier doctor once observed, patients sleep through pain, as one sleeps through wind, persistent yet bearable, perhaps a numbness of flesh and spirit that allows survival to continue. The hearth fire flickers faintly. The room grows colder. Someone coughs in the corner. Then silence returns. A groan reminds how faint the line between endurance and surrender in the harshest winter. No antibiotics, no modern heating, no true relief, only quilts, lard herbs, and a stubborn will to greet the dawn. Close your eyes. The pained owls, still bearable. Consider how many frontier nights end thus. Bodies aching, lungs burning, souls weary, yet sickness, like seasonal snowfall, inevitably arrive. Though searing to the bone, it ultimately teaches resilience. Sinking back into the straw bed, sighing, letting the body's weight bear the ache, allowing it to fade into background noise. Awakening brings no greater strength, but awakening comes nonetheless. In this frontier, that alone is victory. The cough in the corner fades, replaced by another sound, the faint scrape of iron against wood. Someone rises from the bedding, staggering towards the hearth, stirring the embers. Half-minus open eyes catch the firelight. The embers are fanned into flame. Here, sleep is never truly solitary. Each night forms a silent pact. Someone must always stay awake to tend the fire. History repeatedly emphasizes the consequences of letting the fired eye, whether from bitter cold or flame spreading unchecked. Winter homes depend on fire for life. A newborn rolls onto its back, feeling the shift in bedding, gazing at the chest where a shadow stokes the fire. The flames leap, sparks fly, shadows dance upon the wall. The familiar cottage and stream seem to respond. Without a night watch, the darkness is far more perilous. Family members take turns, each rising in turn stirring the embers to ensure the woodpile burns until dawn. Records are meticulous. Even 8-year-old children must take their turn. Sleepy minor-side yet dutiful. The home never falls into the cold, silent darkness. Curiously, the diary records the family's night watch with a fountain glass. Each time someone rose, they would turn the same glass, knowing when it was time to change shifts. This custom brought order to the chaotic night, a ritual of awakening. Another account describes the family's reliance on trained dogs. When the fire grew faint, these living alarm clocks would bark, rousing the slumbering. Experts still debate the necessity of constant vigilance. Some argue certain households exaggerated the peril. Others counter that carefully piled embers, smouldering beneath ash, could burn slowly until dawn, while yet others point to frequent cases. Smothered coals leaving cottages cold, and ultimately sparking catastrophic conflagrations. Proof itself of vigilance is necessity. Truth may vary, yet each merits deep reflection. The careless awaken frostbitten, the cautious forsake sleep for survival. Picture yourself rising now, a shawl draped over your shoulders. Sleep minus, laden eyes heavy with grit. Cold floor pressing against your feet. The storm at your sides. The hearth fire flickers faintly. A heartbeat pulsing through the room. Kneeling to stir the embers. Hearing it sigh, the flames surge suddenly. Burning, stinging your cheeks. Yet the chill sends shivers down your spine. This solitary night vigil lets blanket minus wrapped family sleep soundly. The watcher Margulis we uses this time to pray, to ponder, to compose poems and tales. One youth penned most exquisite verses, carved between the logs, a silent cottage, doors and windows shut tight, echoes with wolves howling outside. The night watchman confessed his torment, battling drowsiness for hours, counting the flickering embers, weaving memories in solitude. Such were the days on the frontier, chopping wood, planting corn. The hearth's warmth grew stronger, fresh logs ignited, smoke curled lazily up the chimney. Half minus open eyes understood. The fire minus keeping ritual endured. The hearth was not merely warmth, but a fragile lifeline, demanding vigilance from every soul beneath the eave. Slip carefully beneath the covers. Feel the lingering warmth envelop you. Someone rises. Another hour passes. The ritual repeats, ensuring the rhythm continues. Dawn descends. Sleep fragments, woven between duty. Yet it comes at last. Historians often liken nights on the frontier to a collective marathon. Each shoulders part of the burden none truly rests. Only in shared existence do we perceive reality. Only now can bodies relax, secure in knowing the hearth fire remains tended. Sleep comes not from night's tranquility, but from watchers taking their turn. As long as wood burns, night watchmen stand guard until dawn breaks. Here sleep is never empty. Memories thicken like viscous paste. A tenacious obsession. The mind refuses stillness, though the body craves rest. The instant eyes close cold air and smoke. The faint rustle of straw wrapped one in slumber. The diary often speaks of the frontier's harsh winter, bringing strange dreams eerie and vivid. Hunger gnaws like worms in the belly. Fear prowls in the shadows. Even when utterly exhausted, the mind still weaves intricate illusions. The night watchman curled beneath thick furs, half minus asleep, still imagines trudging through snow. Endless drifts, engulfing knees. The dream feels so real the body aches, as if truly enduring it. The sudden startling sound is not a wolf's howl, but laughter. That faint echo trembles across the frozen plain. Dreams often stitch together mundane anxieties and daily struggles in the dreams recounted by family. Endless wood piles vanish. Stacked log cabins collapse under snow's weight. Dining tables groan beneath untouched food. A pioneering woman claimed she dreamt of bread nearly every night during the harsh winter. In the depths of winter, bread piles reach the ceiling, yet no one takes a bite. Hunger invades sleep, stubbornly shaping waking hours. When others speak of dreams, fragmented snatches are severed by the cold. During shift minus keeping vigils, each dream resumes from where it broke. Consciousness weaved as jointed tales. Experts still debate a frontier dream's reality distorted by bitter cold and hunger, or memories sharpened in shallow sleep. Some believe fragmented rest makes dreams clearer, etching memories like frosted glass. Others believe hunger and cold themselves force the subconscious to dramatize scene, creating nocturnal illusions. Whatever the cause, Winter dreams in the Wild West seldom hold tenderness. Strong actresses slip away, chins fall slack. Another vision, dreams of flames, roaring with unnatural brightness. Tongues of fire lap at higher rafters. No one stirs, instead sitting still, watching. As the blaze consumes the wooden hut, faces surrender in calm resignation. Struggling only makes it worse. A sudden jolt of awakening, breath shallow and rapid. Realizing that pioneers often dream of fire, sometimes savior, sometimes foe. This thing sustains life yet troubles sleep. Strangely, not all dreams are gloomy. Children recall winter nights filled with green pastures, warm rivers, summer breezes breathing space for the soul. Brief respite, cruel reality. The boy remembers fields chasing butterflies in dreams, waking to the stiffness of water buffalo hide stiffness. Frost minus bitten disappointment, sharp memories lingering. Hope gasps in the mist. Mists settle thoughts. Only then do I realize the soul to balance as fear and solace, weaving fragments of memory, a survivable silence. Cottage, stream, wood sigh. The sleep emerges with the background hum. Thoughts blur the picture, neither real nor illusory. Historians sometimes debate how those vivid, restless dreams shape daytime actions, while endless nightmares, eroding the spirit, strengthen resilience, rehearsing endlessly between peril and safety. Sleep holds no simple answers. Upon waking, frost crystals glisten on the tip of the nose. Smoked world, dreams never truly depart. Reality curls tighter, pressing against the face. Musty bedding, illusions of nightfall weather warning. Solace, echoes of hunger or cold. All must submit. The survival path runs to wild. In the west, dreams too are shaped by winter, gradually becoming the landscape. Endure the dawn. When dawn finally breaks, the prairie towns discover not every bed is a family nest. Cabins sometimes serve as inns, privacy vanishes. Warmth is rationed like bread. Frontier towns sprout like mushrooms after rain. The makeshift lodgings that emerge are often little more than minus plank shacks with draughty windows. Miners, merchants, laborers, travelers. The few coins lie down, yet find no comfort. Crowds jostle for warmth, none truly relax. Entering the room, the air is thick, mingling with boots, tobacco, sweat, damp wool, and rough wooden floors, streams, straw mattresses, iron beds lined up creaking. Someone turns over. Strangers share blankets. Walls thin as a cicada's wing. The wind whispers through cracks. Compared to the pioneer's solitude, this symphony of clamor. The traveler once noted it with curiosity, lying beside the inn bed, that unseen man. Only his snoring remembered. Life is strangers huddled together, occasionally startled awake, tangled in blankets, exchanging awkward pleasantries until sunrise when men rotated shifts in town, beds shared in turn. One guest at night, another by day. This was called hot minus bedding. Sheets seldom cooled, never washed. Experts divided communal lodgings into zones for safety. Diseases shared, warmth against the cold, timber scarce. Crowding breeds coughs and lice, typhus, tuberculosis, influenza rages 20 or 30 men crammed. In smoke minus filled air, historians argue in hastened epidemics. Yet counter that demand far outstripped supply and strong minus mat rooms. When his collective breathing, one murmurs prayers, another grinds teeth, a third mutters and sleep in the corner. The stove crackles, warmth creeps towards the near bed. Those by the far bed wrap themselves tighter, breath condenses into mist, the air thick with the pungent smell of unwashed wool, the rusty scent of the iron stove. Strangely, the inn occasionally offers a luxury unheard of in lonely farmhouses. The coffee pot, wrapped in cloth and nestled against warm bricks, simmers perpetually. The sleepless hear the landlady's soft hum, children's voices stir, snores and coughs intertwine in such harsh surroundings. The clamor becomes solace proof. that one is not alone turning in the darkness. One strives to avoid bumping elbows with strangers, ribs creaking under the pressure. Whispers stir the bedding. Patchwork quilts, thick and thin, resemble mosaics. Fingertips tracing the stitching recall countless mending after bitter nights. Historians ponder why townspeople choose crowded beds for winter over frontier solitude. The cost of unease and dullness far outweighs comfort. Voices. Nearby records show miners returning to lodgings though earning rent. They abandoned the wooden huts and fled the clamour, preferring colder nights, in silence listening to snores rise and fall, whispers, broken and intermittent dreams lost by men coughs quivering the rafters, collective sleep. Tumultuous and fragmented exhaustion drags, one deeper, only then realizing the warmth of unfamiliar bodies is enough to sustain outside the town. Streets buried in snow, lanterns flickering faintly, wind breathing within the house, dozens of restless lungs, dozens of weary hearts seeking fragile solace, wild west winter eyes closed, letting oneself be jostled, submitting to the resonant rhythm, drifting into dreams, strangers as night companions, survival lodgings roof, gradually sinking the rhythm beneath snores and coughs grows heavier, faint light flickers fragilely through the long darkness. Electricity has yet to reach the frontier, cold nights warmed solely by flames, candles, tallow lamps, loyal lamps, kerosene lamps, wicks bobbing in shallow boils, grease oozing faint halos, plank walls, rough bedding, travelers' tales. The frontier's darkness is absolute, only that lamp's glow offers companionship like a talisman, warding off the end. The night closes, and squinting through the gloom the lamp crackles in the dim mist, the flame flickers indoors, leaning against the window frame. A chill slips and the pool of light gathers near the bed, shadows half minus hidden, half minus revealed faces, half minus lit, half minus shadowed eyes glimmering with the ember's glow. The human heart craves faint light, safety and solace. The world has not vanished into darkness. With delicate strokes, the diary notes families deliberately trimmed candle wicks short, forcing the oil reservoir to spit sparks. Children gazed, mesmerized, as sleepiness deepened and the flames down. Households placed candles before mirrors, polishing tin cans, double shadows intertwined, reflections becoming pairs upon pairs of flame. Humble magic, resources stretched as far as reality permitted. Scholars debated whether whale oil or kerosene prevailed in truly remote areas, arguing affluent settlers could afford imported fuel, while poor households relied on home-made tallow candles. Shipping records show kerosene barrels reached remote regions later. One frontier households in the 1860s treasured light as a precious commodity. Hoarding rationed candlelight, imagine holding a candle. The rich scent of animal fat filling the nostrils, wax dripping slowly into the dish. The flame crackling undanced shadow instinctively prompted one to shield eyes with a hand and easy breathing. In the lodging house a hypnotic allure born of fragile halos. The tower of dark bay loomed, ever minus present, knowing the faint light would fade, yet strangely clinging to it. The town enforced mandatory blackout hours, requiring all fires extinguished at specific times to prevent conflagration. The housekeeper moves between rooms, extinguishing candles. Boarders grumble as they depart. In utter darkness, some defy the ban, preferring risk to inevitable blindness. A realm of fear, minus shrouded darkness, haunted by wandering spirits, accidents frequent. The acrid smell of kerosene, a lingering metallic taste, hand touches. The lampshade, smoke minus stained candles feel rougher, dust accumulates on walls, bedding stained black hanging low amidst a light cough. The flame trembles, a single breath could extinguish it in that instant. A fragile life is realized, maintaining a delicate equilibrium. With a swaying wick a breeze brushes by the flame, wavers turning around, shadows lengthen, shapes on the ceiling grow large and small. The flame shifts unpredictably, nailheads become faces, a figure curled by them. Adults know well it is but a play of light and shadows guard them. Adult, yet imagination still flourishes in the dark. Dreams sprout easily, silhouettes dance upon the rough wooden boards. Historians record frontier household customs: lighting lamps before sleep, candlelight accompanying bedtime poetry readings. The faint, sickly glow of the lamp, a symbolic yet practical little ritual, promises the family's rising at dawn, extinguishing the last faint light swiftly. A sense of foreboding. The wilderness beckons within. Flickering orange patterns when eyes close. Smoke lingers upon the eyelids. The room's silence deepens. Someone extinguishes the lamp. A soft hiss. The last light falls. The inn sinks into thick blackness. Suffocating, lie engulfed. Unable to see the face beside, unable to see the raised hand. Eyes open. Gradually, darkness breathing softens at the ear, body relaxes into sleep. Only then do I realize, always faithful to the frontier night, faithful to the flame sustaining life, faithful to the wall's steadfastness, faithful to the faint lamp granting peace. Surrender to dreams now past, surrender to the drifting darkness. Step sky, boundless blackness. Not all face it the same way. What opens before the eyes is not the draughty wooden inn, but a circular tent-a frame of bent poles covered in animal hides, heavy air, smoke, the scent of sage. Indigenous communities in the West have long practiced traditional methods for enduring winter nights, often proven far more effective than those of settlers. Ethnographers document how tribes designed shelters for winter, their focus on the conical peak, earth-minus tent dwellings, ingeniously constructed, both trap warmth and vent smoke. Countless generations mastered the art of winter slumber as wagons journeyed west within cone, minor-stop tents, centered around hearths. Intricate smoke channels directed fumes skyward. Warmth diffused evenly across communal sleeping spaces. Heads towards the fire. Feet facing out. Layers of elk hide served both as blankets and structural supports. Heavy framework wrapping interior warmth. The faint glow of flames illuminated painted hides. Soft hues transformed the interior into a warm, sheltered haven. When blizzards howled plains, tribes employed a remarkable detail. Beds strewn with cedar branches emitting a crisp, pleasant fragrance. Smoke formed a soft cushion upon the frozen ground. Some laid down heavy pelts. Children vanished into bedding amidst laughter. Sleep enveloped the entire tribe. Elders narrated ceremonial tales, their voices weaving myth. Steading with adjusted embers. Stirred. Sleep was not merely survival but a sacred moment. Guardians of stories debate the influence of ritual. Native winter traditions clash with those. Debate the influence of ritual native winter traditions. The znolls of the settlers, the latent rays, the latent searching, hides in circular sleeping patterns, yet secular sleeping patterns, yet settlers, leaping patterns. Crinked nasal hairs clinging to warmth. At the hearth center, gentle crackling. The cottage stove, meticulously tended, sparks flying, air humming with breaths, children sighing into sleep, elders shifting slowly. Outside, the storm rages. Within, the circle of shelter, leather, generations of knowledge, strange records describing how snow was deliberately used in construction. Far-minus northern tribes compacted snow foundations to build tents. Later settlers deemed such practices peculiar, yet this was the obvious, natural extension of coexisting with the land. Settlers cursed the bitter cold, while indigenous traditions transformed snow into an alliance. Night sounds differed, not the creak of wooden beams or the tremble of window frames, but wind-like waves crashing against the shore. Leather walls, flames breathing smoke. Wispy embers carried a faint leading scent. Shadows flung through the air. Curves and angles intertwined made the space feel luminous. Like and secure, this sanctuary carved from the wilderness prompts historians to ponder the indigenous tent. A place of restful sleep, the pioneer's log cabin, a dwelling of settled life. The latter's design is simple, its ritualistic layout reinforces collective intimacy. With them honed over centuries. The pioneer, however, weaves straw mats on the fly. Sleeping upon cracked logs, the architecture housing indigenous families is deliberately built for cold resistance. The weight of furs differs distinctly. Fragmented warmth wrapped in cedar bark, Cautious firelight weaves an embrace, appearing natural and unhurried. The hastily erected dwellings of pioneers now evoke an almost envious longing. Children float within dreams. Fear shapes their visions. Wolf packs, wind minus swept passes, spirits guiding, nightfall, heavy eyelids, releasing winter's slumber. The frontier never tales. Tapestries, traditions, borrowed methods, clashing custom, neglected wisdom, the embraced native hut, sensing difference keenly, merely survival, braving the cold, belonging, restful harmony, strength, settlers' resistance, flames humming, fur rustling, letting thoughts drift, cocoon minus like wolf, old cabin walls, cabin tranquility, dissipating, startled awake, roaring violent sounds. Outside, gale, shrieking, 1,000 voices, trembling walls. This moment, snow piling, pounding the roof, waves violently striking, skied ohm, falling. Realizing the cottage was not asleep. Winter, imprisonment, contemporary accounts describe blizzards, families sealed indoors day after day, windows and chimneys buried, escape hopeless, heavy air indoor, smoke and storm choking throats, firewood rapidly depleted, wood burned, more added. In scarcity, family huddled beneath quilts piled to the ceiling, children tossed and turned. Detailed records show families playing games and telling stories to distract claustrophobic anxieties. Others endured silence, time stretching suspiciously long. Ada Cotum memoir recounts melting snow for drinking water. Frozen wells required setting up pots over fires to await the storm's gift-dipping liquid. Gales howled as neighbors hoarsely recounted they chiseled through snow walls, carving narrow passages through the cabin. Snow piled so high, they crawled on their bellies, sharing food and news, traveling back and forth in the bitter cold. Scholars hold differing views. The psychological trauma of confinement brought families closer. First intimacy deepened bonds, yet tempers flared more easily. Arguments were constant. Despair crept in. Days blurred into indistinctness. The blizzard became a prison cage. The snow miners built confines tightened relentlessly. Outside, the storm raged undrawed. Inside, only muffled sounds remained. Human coughs, whispers, prayers. Amidst rummaging through snowdrifts for softer straw, mingled with acrid smoke from the chimney, life suffocates. The hearth dies, vents sealed by snow. Strangely, the children later cherished those confined days, describing snowy times when labor paused, chores lightened, stories filled the darkness. Carving puppets, singing unlistening, elders wide mine aside recounting legends. Against the storm's backdrop, a rare focus. Parents scurrying for survival, tension palpable, wind lashing the roof, doubting its hold. Firewood burned, its dwindling supply counted. Hunger gnawed as food diminished. Meals stretched thin. Thin porridge simmered in the pot, the hearth fire barely bubbling. Stomachs growled like mockery. They ate slowly, pretending the portions sufficed. Historians noted the harshest winter. Family discussed it. Day and night indistinguishable. Sleep fitful, ever vigilant. Dreams hazy. Wakeful dread. Imagination adrift. Rest uneasy. Awakening certain. Days slip away. Time vanishes. The storm steals freedom. Movement constrained. Thoughts muddled. Curled straw ears. Listening to the muffled fury. Snow presses tighter. Walls seal the cracks. The cottage, buried alive. Strangely, warmth lingers longer. The storm like a blanket, trapping the faint glow. The paradox of survival. Snow imprisons yet shelters. Children settled, breathing steady. Small bodies radiating warmth, curled within blankets, attempting to think. The wood-piled windows. Hunger gnaws deeper. Eyes closed, The storm's roar becomes a lullaby, reminding them the wilderness still rages. The shelter of fragile space, fear. Sleep, understanding meaning survival. Frontier, Euretier, blizzard. Surrendering control, enduring confinement, measuring time by hours. Breaths, sharing heavy quilts, waiting for the world to soften. The storm past the cottage murmurs, unfamiliar voices toss and turn. Unable to sleep, listen the wind. Gradually subsides, the cottage emits a groan. The creak, the sigh, the logs. Restless sleepers sharing the night, the traveller's diary mentions. Disturbing freshly cut timber, hastily piled walls contracting. Shifting years, eyes sharp, gunshot, winter's silence, eyes closed, the sound wave surges in. A log snaps, joints crack, a long low moan. Beams shift, snow presses joints, creaking faint sounds. A sudden start, half minus sitting up. Gentle rhythm, the cottage breathes. The pioneer boy's wondrous observation, swearing the logs speak. Night declares, whispering cracks conspire to collapse. The least expected moment. Parents laughingly refuse bedtime. Darkness near the wall records descriptions. The family names. The loudest groan, old Henry's dramatic beat. Familiarity lessens the dread. Expert interpretations of the sounds bring comfort and unease. Debates soothe. The sleeper testifies. The structure remains sound. Wind and snow hint. The constant reminder. Fragile streams warn of collapse. Nearby sights feel real, tangible. Running at night, hand touching wall. Cool, slightly damp. A living tremor. Logs shifting. Imagining sturdy house transformed into giant wooden ship. Cutting through wind and waves. In winter storm, whole groans. Undercurrents churn. Perhaps dreams carry unseen seas. Cottage sings. Vessel strange. Pioneers deliberately loosen joints, letting beams move freely. Believing this reduces cracking. Others stuff moss minus cloth strips into crevices, tightly plugging gaps, hoping to block sound. The ventilation method renders the house utterly silent. The best sounds are soft, the worst, sharp. The scent of resin hangs in the air. Fresh sap seeps from felled green timber. The cabin crackles. Aid delicate. Sweet fragrance rises. The intertwined smoke of the hearth fire and breath reveal how the senses serve survival. Ears are summoned to keenly detect crevices, noses to sniff smoke, skin to sense drafts. Sleep relies on learning the danger signals of the senses. Neglected historians wonder how nocturnal sounds shape the psychological state of frontier life. The persistent creaking and groaning instill anxiety, turning weary rest into background noise. Familiar silence becomes unsettling. Precise are scattered in diary fragments, acknowledging with a touch of amusement that when the house is truly quiet. Pulling up the quilt, turning sideways, the cottage groans, a long pause, sinking into slumber, a faint smile, accepting the rhythm of noise. Night brings easier sleep. The house speaks a silence of lies. Doubt lurks. The creaking gradually fades. Dreamed. A house of sleep woven from fabric. Breathing together, enduring the long cold night. At dawn, the cottage grows quieter. The groans settle softer. The rhythm has fallen. Wind whispers through wooden beams. Voices around the fire. Turning, to figures sit close, faces bathed in ember light, leaning into tell tales of ancient winter nights long cold, touched by warmth. Quilts accompany diaries. Frontier mentions harsh winters, courtship, labor slouts. Young couples drawn to the firelight, watching flames trace shadows. Cheeks, palms lightly wood crackles, laughter echoes, punctuating the stillness. Detailed records of small minus town winter gatherings, quilt minus stitching parties, church socials, fireside courtship. Spring arrives, yet snowbound folk converse merrily, folding romance, blossoming chance encounters. A woman confesses while stitching quilts amidst neighbors' snowstorms, recalling a youth who teased her crooked seams, later bearing warm cider. Apologies described couples taking turns to keep vigil, whispering by the hearth, guarding the fire through cold nights, rousing the chilled household. Intimacy proved both practical and irresistible. Scholars still debate whether closeness stems from choice or circumstance. Can winter truly kindle deep affection when confinement leaves only choice? Historians argue that isolation intensifies interaction. Eyelash flutters, promises, hints. Romance becomes inevitable, whether visible or not. Snow weighs down lighted dwellings, shifting bedding, imagining the fire's warmth, the heat of faces, whispered voices, the occasional touch of hands, a respite from the ceaseless struggle for survival. Outside, wolves howl, gales batter the cottage, fragile bubbles of warmth, heartbeats growing louder. The storm strangely encourages family bonds. Winter courtship. Knowing labor is done, young people harness the season to forge bonds. Parents doze, ears pricked to whispers of vows. Flames sketch the outline of springtime nuptials. Stricter faith separates lovers, they insist darkness is but an excuse. Stern families conspire by firelight, casting soft glows that soften edges and bridge distances. The scent of cider and coffee mingles with sweet vapors, and the shared bench draws near. The silent night is broken by soft laughter, startling the drowsiness. Only when the night deepens do the stories linger, the songs and stolen touches. Historians note frontier marriages began in winter, when snow miners bound communities sought courtship. Tempting love was a survival strategy. Emotional warmth balanced physical cold, whether necessity or desire. Entwined hands draw near the hearth. Eyes closed, whispers fade as the fire's rhythm drifts. Two shadows lean, laughter rises. Crackling logs remind us in winter's grip that humans seek survival and connection. Sleep returns slowly, revealing frontier nights endure cold, seeking warmth, weaving strong bonds. Durable quilts, sturdy wooden walls, love is sanctuary. Half light dims, warmth stills. Hear rustling, tiny feet, echoes of imagination. Restless wriggling, swift scurrying felt. Straw creaks, soft murmurs. Life in the wild western winter night belongs to humans. Rodents, insects, tiny creatures sharing the cold night, drawing warmth, clinging close to shelter. Letters, diaries, the clear frontier cottage never empty. Carefully swept and sealed, is slightly pricked, listening more intently. In the darkness, faint gnawing sounds from the corner of the wooden beam can be heard. Detailed records show mice gnawing at the cabin, seeking scraps and nesting materials to line the tiny beds. The noise is both irritating and strangely familiar, reminding us of the battle between living creatures and the cold, the pursuit of leftovers. Appendix. Chronicles of Survival Space. The pioneer girl swore she once startled a curled minus at mouse pup. Fur minus lined slippers pressed against the hearth fire. Fear bred pity. Covered with a cloth, protecting the living. The diary did not record this kindness. Morning matting thumped away at the mouse colony. Night minus dug tunnels. Households tacitly allowed cohabitation. A cold smile. Winter kinship. Experts disagree. Intruders. Threats, pests, disease carriers. Their gnawing erodes precious reserve, making winter more deadly. Know that rodents exist. The shrew maintains the cottage's peace. Large predators rustle, warning of invasion. If present, it is inevitable. Under the straw, a rustling sound, the scent of hay rises. Smoke mingles with faint musk, a feel of animal fur. The intimate chill between legs. The absurd notion of sharing a bed unsettles, suddenly realizing the cruelty of rodent refugees and solitude. In cold nights they seek warmth. Fragile shelters become unexpected visitors. In barns and makeshift winter shelters. Snakes, bats, insects likewise seek warmth. Farmers welcome cats, both pets and essential guardians. A skilled mouser reduces gnawed bedding on ravaged grain sacks, bringing quieter nights. Children named the cat Night Watcher, a fitting title. Human sounds persist, faint squeak, rustling scurries, light taps upon the beams, fragmented gnome arcs, piled straw sighs, lifting bedding high, attempting to block out the sounds, urging rest. Historians suggest an ease coexists, fueling restless tossing and turning. Frontier years, ears strained, listening keenly for rustling. Signals of rodent infestation, deeper dread. Outside, firelight flickers softly, revealing rodent shadows darting across the floor. Pausing by the hearth, a tiny form trembles. Steam rises, breaths, admiring this resolve, a carved refuge. Night's inevitability, survival's grace. Order and disorder, coexistence's necessity. Closing eyes, attempting to fold the sounds, the rhythm. Nighttime cabin, creaking, half fire-size, rat scurry chorus. Relising the most minute, weaving tales of fragile tapestries. Winter slumber welcomes those truly cast out. Turning, they tighten their concealment. Rustling fades into the background, the warmth of the western wilderness. A common currency, the souls of humans and rodents, desperate for shelter, might vanish into darkness, a hum filtering through the building, the stir of frozen streets awakening. After realising, the cottage grows more spacious. Air thickens, warmth mingles with wool-smoked candles, the gathering place in the church hall. The community's record of the coldest month. Frontier chronicles, blizzards, severity, dwellings, fragility. Neighbors gathering in communal spaces, drawing warmth from shared hearths, shearing benches, straws softening the chill on rough floors. Dozens bodies radiating heat, layered quilts, cloaks overlapping in the hall. Traces of human warmth, momentary resting places, solitude, kinship, community refuge, neighborly respite, maintaining distance. Curious descriptions in the pastor's diary household, sleeping through sermon. The coldest winter, an excuse for gratitude. Lodging by the hearth, snores more pleasant. God's house, frost-stitched with humor. Townspeople took turns tending the fire. The church stove ensured shelter necessities day and night. Experts debate gatherings, practical matters, essential psychological solace. Avoiding death, providing shelter, rudimentary. Wooden huts, deep value, breaking solitude, winters. Effective defense against despair, cold's origins, church. Hall, lifeline, spiritual and physical, stretching benches, hardwood pressed against sides, comfort, whispering children's whimpers. Swiftly hushed, softly hushed, soft, gnawing rear benches, fire crackling, expanding, filling the air with sharp metallic scent. Soundscape, noisier cottage, night, gentler sounds, life persisting tenaciously in darkness. Strange gathering, celebratory community, holding winter night vigil, lodging until dawn, singing hymns, folk songs, telling tales. Wind howling outside. Sleep fragmented. Stolen verses. Lullabies. Murmurs. Children, excitement and exhaustion. Winter etched in memory. Adults, nights of solace. Knowing the whole town bears the burden, yet it feels lighter. Heavy smoke in the air. Logs shoved into the hearth. A light cough. Stinging eyes. It seems the warmth of thought is worth the sting. Safety worth the discomfort. Borrowed quilt, a strange intimacy. The bedroom filled with strangers' voices. The historian probed public spaces of rest, blurred boundaries. Sacred and mundane intertwined. Shameful to admit, the church became dormitory. Necessity sanctified sleep. Evidence shows frontier life harbored little remorse. Church spaces served dual-purpose prayer and survival, becoming community's core. Eyes closed, rough benches endured, lullabies echoed human resilience. Outside, snow fell and ceasing indoors warmth squeezes life, making the night bearable. Sleep is private and peaceful, voluntary submission. Whispered voices fade in the church hall, slipping into the quiet stories shaped by the tender night. Imagining the scene bedding pulled high, flickering firelight. Voices rise between the walls, soft moans and faint sounds. Wooden planks creak. The log cabin records the oral traditions of pioneer families, bearing the long, cold winters. Books are scarce. Candles were costly, stories served both entertainment and education. Lullabies rocked one to sleep, almost hearing fathers' hushed hunting tales, deep, steady toned. Children curled deeper into strong mattresses. Mothers hummed lyrics, wove melodies like soft wool, rhythms in the smoky air carrying weight. Both content and guidance held power, soothing restless bodies. The settler boy recalled grandmother's tales of European castles and forests, worlds apart from snow, covered plains and grasslands. Snow rattled the window panes until he later realized those castles were frozen solid as rock. Outside in the cornfields, children learnt Bible verses. By the campfire, listening to the pastor's sermons, fingers grew numb while reciting scriptures. Experts hold divergent views on storytelling. Some regard it as practical entertainment. Others see it as cultural transmission, while still others deem it mere time minus skilling. Darkness devours daylight. Stories bear the weight of identity, sustaining endangered traditions. The harshness of migration routes, nightly accompaniment of stringed instruments, shaping generations' dreams. The family violin, the banjo, the harmonica. Music fills the dwelling, though not concert minus whole quality. Strings snapped, notes trembled, yet the warmth of lingering melodies remained. Lullabies drifted over straw beds. Adults drifted off to sleep to familiar tunes. Half minus asleep, they seemed to return to their homeland, listening to sweet home flow from the battered violin. Snow weighed down the wall. Parents warned children to beware of drifters wandering in the snow. Those reckless songs stolen by sprites remind listeners of household duties. Moral lessons hidden within the melody. Entertainment carries instruction. Stories ensuring survival stitched into quilts. Smoke thickens. The crackle of added wood makes the fired ants. Shadows continue within the tales, seamlessly woven into the room's texture. Wood snaps. Tree sap chuckles softly. Children's eyelids grow heavy with laughter at comical lines. The rhythm of the plot flows as steady as human speech. In winter's chill, historians debate how oral culture shaped America's memory. Written records will eventually perish. The diaries and letters left on the plains are all tales children recite again and again. Sleep entwines as traditional tales conclude, lids close, bodies slacken, dreams tread to their end. Words begin to curl deeper, hiding warmth, surrendering to closeness. Story voices soften. Songs slow, fade, silent breaths drift. Relisting stories are distractions. Survival in the cold weaves warmth. Fire and bedding stand guard alone, reaching the final chapter. The tale disperses. Silence searches. Awake in the deep night, the hearth fire lowers, embers glow faintly, the house heavy with chill. A strange sensation, as if startled awake. Sleep breaks intermittently, rising, tending the fire, whispering softly, settling. A traveler's notebook, a letter, describing the night's unusual phase. Later scholars termed it first sleep, second sleep. Records show segmented sleep was common in early Europe. American history notes its prevalence. Evidence suggests frontier households followed this rhythm, especially during winter months. Imagine tossing and turning during the first sleep, sleeping soundly at midnight, then rising at the hour of the night, quietly padding to the chamber, but tiptoeing to the hearth. The fire murmurs softly. Activity within the house sparse, a stark contrast to the dawn hour. Knowing one will soon return to bed. Midnight conversations soft and gentle, plotting the day's plans. Whispered confidences, prayers in the dark. This peculiar liminal hour a subtle chronicle of day's transition. Settlers recall parents reading scripture amidst pauses, children gathering drowsy miners side. Evening diaries mention neighbors visiting through snow, sharing nocturnal observations. Sleep patterns were peculiar yet natural. Historians disagree. Did this sleep pattern truly persist through the pioneer era? In truth, it vanished much earlier. After industrial schedules and strict work clocks became widespread, people still followed natural rhythm. Sleep and wake signals intertwined. Pioneers' exhaustion made fragmented sleep easier. Families would simply fall asleep. Their bodies would awaken naturally at dawn. The truth lies in seasonal family rhythms, always allowing intervals of wakefulness. Upon the straw matting, the flickering glow of the hearth fire blurs the walls and drones into hazy reflection. Only the mother gently rocking the hungry infant, feeding bread left over from supper, the father sharpening tools by the firelight. Unexpectedly, thick smoke begins to gather, mingled with the faint metallic scent of iron striking stone. The silent night still feels bustling, a wondrously precious private hour. The hunter describes the sleep period. Mending equipment, the solitary watchman's thoughts drift. The woman mends by candlelight. Sisters and daughters whisper. The outside world is firmly locked away by winter. Inside, sleep and vigil intertwine, creating a space where thoughts wander. Daytime labor wears away the night's descent while sewing quilts. The body naturally accepts the rhythm. Sleep surges like a tide. Occasional lucidity, yet weariness leads to deeper slumber. Dawn illuminates dreams of vividness. Pioneers recorded visions bridge night's halves, bearing waking tales. Historians ponder ancient patterns, healthier nature, while modern souls harbor hope. Eternal sleep permits process dreams, liveliness grants respite. Monotonous, endless nights narrate, record, hint at grievances. Pure rhythm, winter. Life exhales slowly, relaxing the body. The hearth murmurs, the creaking of the cottage fades. Whispers turn to silence, deep and still, sinking into the second sleep, carrying fragments of conversation, thoughts, dreams. Eyes closed, surrendering to the ancient rhythm. Letting the long night divide naturally, like rivers separating islands only to reunite. At dawn, the second sleep closes its eyelids. Half minus awake, drawn by moans. The soft sound of wood, constant the storm's roar, snowflakes brushing the log cabin walls, lullaby rhythm seeping into the marrow. Contemporary observers record winter nights carrying music, the hiss of snow, the sigh of wind, familiar lullabies. Images emerge beneath thick matting. Straw prickles, snow falls outside the window, sheets shield the world. Dreamlike. Pioneer accounts describe the sacred stillness of falling snow, a deep cough like thunder. Within the silence, subtle sounds. The lullaby, the wind's whistle, snow drifting through window cracks, the roof trembling, heavy rafters. Family lore, the wind's whispers foretell the weather. A low murmur signifies clear skies and morning light. A high minor pitched whistle warns of storms. Children grow, believing the wind is a prophet, whispering secrets through cracks. Ears pressed against the wall, listening to the symphony of the cottage's giant instrument. Experts debate how soundscapes can make sleep sometimes peaceful, sometimes tormented. The monotony of wind and snow soothes restless souls. Yet white noise intensifies anxiety, a reminder of the family's fragility. Snow gently presses down upon the cottage, both shelter and peril accumulating, ready to collapse at any moment. Sounds convey both solace and warning. Even with eyes closed, one remains enveloped by sound waves. The wind gathers strength. Prairie snowflakes tap lightly upon the window panes, like fingertips caressing. Snow slides from the roof. The muffled thud upon landing brings relief. Sound waves ripple in harmony with the rhythm of breath. Auditory senses, the storm's pulse resonate strangely in unison. The pioneers longed for those nights filled with sound. Later, a woman wrote, "The finest wind sings loud and clear. knowing the wilderness traveler's voice comforts the endless. In others' memories, the sound of snow trickling is the closest tranquility, knowing the cottage's breath, the snowdrift's awareness, the embers dying, the damp walls' faintly sweet scent, the drying apples, the storage sacks mingling in a silent symphony. The night thickens, senses shift slightly, the rustle of bedding perfectly intertwines the lullaby rhythm. Layered with soundscapes, winter historians note the frontier child gradually learning the night's melody. The winds moan, the snows gurgle, the snows gurgle. Occasional owl cries disturbances are the norm. Strange, unnatural stillness harbors danger, constant murmurs are better. Snow's deathly silence awaits the predator's sigh, relaxing as the wind carries song. The body slackens heavy, the lullaby's wild familiarity. Western winter's piercing chill, hear the strange endiness, earth's slow murmur. Sleep surrenders to the lullaby. Snow and wind deepen the fold, long night. Tomorrow brings storm, sunlight, hunger, abundance. Tonight the world sings, listen to dreams, fully awake, time's noise. Unease, chest, body, endure. Weeks of shattered weariness, weighed down heavier. Bedding, frontier, insomnia, inconvenience, danger, letters. Diaries reveal cold, hunger and fear gnaw at rest, leaving records of irritability and emaciation. The frontier doctor blames nervous fever, winter's mind, sleepless circumstances, the enemy of sleep deprivation. Frostbite shifts, stroke reeks, joints ache, movement drains the body, thoughts scroll, sharp and irritable. Trivial matters prove impossible. Father's rage, children's clamor, mother's rebuke, bedding slips, falls, sibling quarrels, silence returns, psychological trauma. Sleepless nights extend beyond the log cabin, seeping into relationship. Choices will force daylight to reveal settlers' letters, describe cabin fever, insomnia and confinement intertwine, driving family quarrels. Endless disputes last weeks, even years. Some confess stepping outside, bitterly escaping the wall's oppression, the risk of sound. Frost-bitten breath. Lonely experts disagree. Insomnia damages the body. Cold and fatigue weaken the immune system, inviting illness. Irritability and poor judgment stem from an unrefreshed mind, leading to dangerous accidents. The debate continues. Agreement. Fatigue shapes the rhythm. Frontier winters stretch on, gazing at frost-laden beams, thoughts settle. Firewood dwindles. Wolves howl. Neighbors unseen for weeks. Endless thoughts swirl, inducing drowsiness. Solitary rests seems impossible. Restlessness. Whispers, coughs, heavy sighs. The cottage breathes unevenly. Awake bodies dream strange dream. Rituals form within the household. Coming herbal tea for unsettled minds. Simmering chemelim and sage, prayers chanted softly. Lullabies hummed. Adult, child, woman describing her husband carving wood late at night. The blade meets timber with steady scrape. Sleep finally comes. The family leans on songs and songs. The night grows heavy. Drowsiness overcomes the thick smoke. The fire is stoked. The cottage locks in warmth. Solitude remains. The body yearns to sink into the mind's vigilance. The invisible historian ponders the perpetual wake-of-smells of survival mechanisms. Awake, one is utterly exposed to the world's perils. The price of slumber is heightened vigilance. Tossing and turning, sleeping, facing the wall, longing for the creak of roughed timber, the soft rustle of wood. A gentler lullaby. Breaths slow, thoughts churn. Winter's alarm. The frontier silent. Floating through the night, fragments of wake-of-smells pieced together. Rest sown by pure will. Dawn's light cleaving the morning. Splitting wood, mending fences, shoveling snow. Endless. Fragile resilience, stubborn. Eyes closed to the wind's low murmur. The hearth sigh, thoughts gradually still, restless silence, rhythm drifting. Deep slumber, perhaps. The Wild West demands perfect rest. Survival requires pure resolve. In the long, sleepless darkness of the cabin, heavy weariness, labored breathing, body sinking into bedding, feelings sheltering from night's terrors, the howl of wolves, creaking timber, restless tossing, death's presence, frontier winter's chill, spare the weak. The diary confesses, lamenting sleepless nights, recording pneumonia, influenza, frost claiming lives, families forced to face winter's darkness. A weight almost tangible, room silent, hearth's faint glow, deeper still the quiet silence. Breath suspended in the cottage's corner, quietly vanishing. No one to preserve it. Time's sorrow, death in daylight. The rites commence, morning begins, dawn. The lingering narrative recounts, the family keeping vigil through the night, the child's still form in the dark. Fear. Outside, the cold, sitting wrapped in bedding, telling stories. Though the child spoke little, they stitched the world together, pioneering the chronicler records, neighbors bearing the body, across the frozen barn floor the promise of burial. Properly laid to rest, spring softened earth postpones deaths, slumber fragmented remains, our gathered scholars disagree. The family copes through emotion, winter's loss remains exposed, death fragility renders grief utilitarians. Suffocating sorrow, believing endless nights magnify grief, leaving imprints. Spring lingers, evidence mingled, narratives align. Winter turns to morning, a resilient survival narrative. Sleepless nights, flames flickering faintly, faces gazing. Silence broken, muffled sobs, whispered prayers. Smoke mingles with salty tears. Moldy quilts drawn tighter, warm solace, air heavy enough to suffocate. The weight of sorrow presses upon the chest. Strangely, the community develops unique rituals. Winter bereavement sees households light more candles. Burning nights guide departed children. Wind whispers the voices of loved ones, carried further afield, softening the blow of absence. Neighbors gather on nights of death, softly chanting hymns. Outside the cottage door, voices intertwine. The storm's posture, a shift in solidarity. Covered by quilts, hearts constrict, contemplating sleep. The environment rests. True arrival, grief approaches. Exhaustion will ultimately prevail. Finally, the diary describes family collapse, restless sleep, sitting beside the departed. Weariness resists sorrow. Sleep overlaps, dreams blur memories. Dawn brings painful reminders. Nightmares. The historian contemplates frontier night, stalked survival and death family. Distant invaders' children gradually grasp death. Simpact, the context of modern sleep, is practicing surrender. Night is a minor rehearsal, the final silence, deep breath, air thick, with the cottager's heavy sorrow closing eyes to fleece or carrying dreams. Perhaps the sound of return laughter replacing the cold awaking, with a serene countenance, a body wrapped in bedding, floating, concealing complex weight, memory, survival, love and loss, intertwined in the winter night of the Wild West sleep. His recollection is fragile hope tomorrow will come at last, and the long night, the storm roars, fragmented sleep, restless and broken dawns, faint light presses through the slats of the shutters, its warmth, rare and precious the winter, prairie brings promise, eyes open, the body, beneath the heavy quilt, stiffened cold, surviving. Weary diary of the night frontier, larking the transition, morning light, small victory, battling the wilderness, torch extinguished. Embers faint, smouldering, rustling sounds heard, scraping charcoal, clattering wood pile stacked, smoke louds, the cabin stings. The eyes a burning sensation, life revives, recording the morning light, winter's long night, defining peace. Ritual rekindled, campfire. Spirit, body, primary task, celebration continued. Curious memory, female pioneer rites, January dawn, tasted ash coffee. Ash campfire coffee, thin, bitterness, warmth draws near, daytime chronicle. Recalling children scrambling, Clothing by the hearth, steam rising, wet clothes warmed by the stove. Morning light lingers, weaving chaos, survival reorganizing, daylight experts segmenting crowds, wristing territories, reclaimed family, abodes eternal weariness, operating pure necessities, genuine rest, human adaptability, permitting flourishing, resilient, staking shape, records of rest, revealing truth, weariness, constant persistence, extending straw, rustling air, crackling breath, condensing vision, pale frost, flowers, glass, surging silence, liberation. The darkest night has passed. Outside, snow light flickers cruelly. Inside, sounds churn. Children yawn, adults hum softly. Life in boots, fragile continuity, strange. Dawn bears rare tenderness. Children awaken, discover frost flowers on the window, carving exquisite patterns, summoning ice crystals, flowers. Family pauses, admires beauty, almost destroyed. Pursuing frozen lace, fingertips wipe. A harsh winter bestows a small gift. Slowly rising, draping a shawl, shoulders. Storm, minus padded blankets. Embers of the campfire, the bed. Rustling stalked. Itchy fur, heavy blankets bear the luxury of comfort. Imagining survival, enduring the long winter nights. Currency matters, historians, Wild West, establishing sunlight saloon. Cattle drives, unseen times, winter's long nights, families gathered round the hearth. Sustaining life, stolen moments, fragments, dreams. Shaping hunger, fear, sleep, resistance. Waking, endurance, deep breaths, smoke stings. Dissipating, allowing the body to relax, dawn's promise facing. Seeking stories in the dark, lifestyle slows its pace. Softens imagery, dimming embers fade, long vigils lengthen. The cabin encircled by restless winter days. Imagine the silence of snow falling outside, steadily blanketing the world's tranquility. The harshness of prairie nights. Snowdrifts bearing a gentle rhythm of breath, warmth from blankets, soft light of memory. Recalling families once wrapped in animal hides. Children drifting in dreams, crackling fire, weary parents guarding embers, stars falling from the hearth. Struggling through nights past, enduring dawn's lingering chill. Resilient, small victories. Survival repeated. Nightfall permits the gentlest of progress. Snow falls like a cradle, parents guarding embers, stars falling from the hearth. Struggling through nights already lost, enduring the lingering chill of dawn, resilient. Small victories, survival repeated. Nightfall permits the gentlest of progress. Snowfall, like a lullaby. Flickering candlelight, warmth shared, feeling others, the sting of frostbite. Straw's tranquility, knowing even in harshest places, sleep is found, wrapped in weary bodies. Sinking into the embrace of stillness. Deep breaths, bodies sinking beneath heavy, secure covering. Night spreads. By threat and tender promise. Eyes closed, listening to history's whispered guidance. Drifting in silence, recalling moments embraced by warmth. Humanity's deepest yearning, bearing sleep. Sinking into profound dreams, soft and sweet.